been in early access for a good long time. Welcome to a new playthrough of Factorio. Factorio was recently released a few months ago in its 1.0 release to the general public. It's been in early access for a good long time, many years. I've been playing this game for quite a while, even before it came onto Steam early access. So I've had quite a bit of experience with it. We're going to go ahead and, for anyone new to the game, we're going to go ahead and gear this toward that. I may not, cover everything, but this series will be full of spoilers, so you may not want to listen until you have at least played the game a little bit. If you don't mind the spoilers, or if you're stuck, then this is going to be a perfect series for you. So, Factorio is a simulation slash puzzle game. It's kind of like Tetris, except for way more complex. I believe that it appeals to engineering minds and anyone who likes puzzle games, simulation games, strategy games. I think it is pretty fun in that regard. I think you'll like it. You may like it even if you don't like those kinds of things. So that's what these videos will hopefully help you determine. It's a fairly inexpensive game for the amount of time you get out of it. If you do like it, you'll probably be mostly addicted. I've played many thousands of hours of this game, so it was probably one of the best purchases as far as entertainment value per penny or per dollar that I've ever bought. We'll go ahead and take a look, though, again at default settings. There's many different ways to play this, and in the future we will play through various scenarios and other ways of doing it. But this is kind of the intended way of the Factorio developers. So we're going to go ahead and go into single player here and new game. The free play is what we're going to start. And you notice here it's the intended way of playing Factorio. So we're going to go ahead and go through settings. So we're going to use the default settings for the most part. Default resources, terrain, including cliffs. I don't particularly like cliffs, but we're going to play with them. We're going to play with enemy bases, enemy expansion, and evolution, all active. Again, this is all the default ways. And then the advanced stuff, it just allows you to customize and do some kind of neat specialized things, which again we'll take a look at in future systems, but future series. But for now, I would recommend the default settings is kind of the way to start. If you want a slightly easier game, bump up the frequency or size and richness of the ore patches. We'll take a look at all this stuff, once we get in the game, and we'll explain it. I would also recommend that you preview the map with that preview button there, especially when you're new. That way you'll be able to see initially where you're going to crash land. You're going to crash land kind of in the middle of this area, so you'd be able to see what's in the immediate vicinity. You have some pretty good stone and ores here, so this would be a pretty good map. You're coast locked on this side, so you'll be able to defend yourself fairly well. But we're going to go ahead and close the preview. I want a little bit of randomness so we can explain and kind of walk through some things together. So that's it. We're going to go ahead and play. You'll notice here we are possibly not as good of a pilot as we thought we were. We kind of crash landed on this, what looks like an alien planet. Our task is to get back off of this planet, so we want to launch a rocket into space. So we'll go ahead and start that. The game itself will go through quite a few. It has these tips and tricks, and it has a tutorial system. They're very good, and I recommend that you go through those, particularly if you're new. They have a whole lot of information for you. But again, we're not going to sit there and read that. We're actually going to play, and we're going to... Again, this is the tutorial, which has a whole lot of great information when it pops up here. But you can explore that on your own. Like I said, we're going to walk through it. It'd be pretty boring if we just sat there and read it. The first thing, we have this ship that we crashed in. We can grab a few resources out of it. We have, if you press the E key, that'll bring up your inventory. We have a little bit of inventory here, but not a lot. we can get a little bit more from our ship. Thankfully, a few things remained. So if you click the ship itself, these are containers. Containers are a common occurrence in Factorio. You will want to get familiar with them. But if you click it, then it'll show you not only your inventory, but also what is in that container. In this case, it's the spaceship. You can either shift left, you can left click and drag, or you can right click and drag, which will give you half of what you clicked on. That the left click obviously gave us all of it. You can also shift click, and then that will take the entire stack. In this case, it went down to our firearm magazine down here in our. We have two different toolbars we'll talk about in a moment. But that cleaned out that one. Let's take a look at this one. So we've got 4 iron plates here. Again, we could shift left click, or if we shift right click, it's going to take half of it. So that gave us 2 out of those 4. We can go ahead and we'll shift left click the rest of that over. You can also, you don't actually have to open the container in order to get things out of it. You can also just you can control left click even when it's here's one. We can control right click to get half of that out. We can control left click to get the full stack out as well. And you can just kind of run around holding left click and the control button down, and then just hit all these, and you'd get whatever you want out of that. We'll take a look at a lot of that in the future as well. There's not much that we can grab out of those containers, but we'll have plenty of our own containers here in a little while. I pressed the S key on the keyboard. Sorry, the M key on the keyboard, which gave us the map. That pulled up a pretty good map. We have a bit of a choke point up here on the north, so that's pretty good. We'll be able to choke off the rest of this. So I'm pretty happy about this map. We have some trees that will absorb some pollution. So this is a pretty good map. I like this. We're going to keep that spaceship there for now. Notice, though, we talked about the ore in the settings, the resources. That's what this is. So we have stone, we have iron ore, we have copper ore, and coal. And we'll use all of these things to help eventually build that rocket ship we talked about earlier so that we can get off this planet. In the meantime, let's go ahead and get started. The way that we do that, you might have noticed in the inventory screen earlier, we can also, over here, we can change aspects about our character. We can also craft items. These items cost certain resources, which our factory will provide us. Initially, we kind of have to run around a little bit and do that ourselves, but eventually our factory itself will give us everything that we need. For now, this large stone here, it's called a huge rock. If you notice on the right hand side below the mini map, it'll give you any information about whatever you're hovering over. This will give us some coal and some stone, which is really nice. We'll finish grabbing that, and notice when we go into our inventory, we now have coal and stone. We can use the toolbar down here to easily access various things in our inventory. You can pretty easily manage this. You can add additional bars here, which we'll show later. I find that in the first part, I don't really need more than the 2. Once we start doing military things, we'll probably pop up the 3rd or 4th there. We'll cover those when we get to them. In the meantime, you notice I just went ahead and grabbed that coal down there, and that added that in that slot. The top one here, if you push the 1 through 5 keys on the keyboard, it will take what you have in there and kind of put it in your hand so that you can do whatever you want with it. We're going to go ahead and start grabbing some iron. And remember, I told you there will be a lot of spoilers in this, so I have played this quite a bit, so I know a lot about what we need. And this first episode is going to be a little slower because I'm going to teach you all the basics. Then we're going to get going a little bit faster. So when you're holding something in your hand, you can press the Z key, also known as the Z key in many countries. I'm an American, so I'm going to call it the Z key. If you press that, then it will take one item out of whatever's in your hand and place it into the item that you're hovering over. In this case, it put coal into both this burner mining drill and the stone furnace. So now we're extracting whatever's underneath this over on the right-hand side, expected resources, you can see that we have some iron ore under there. So this is grabbing iron ore out of the ground and sticking it into this stone furnace. The stone furnace is baking that up, well, melting it down, I guess we should say, and giving us iron plates. And those iron plates are eventually used to build everything else. So most everything needs iron. Everything needs one of these basic resources. It's usually iron, at least iron or copper, usually iron and copper. But and then we can also make advanced things, but we'll cover those when we get to them. The other neat part about this, these little overlays, I like the Alt overlay here, which you can toggle on and off with your mouse button by clicking it, or you can press the left Alt key on the keyboard, and that'll toggle. Notice how it toggles that little icon. That icon is a iron plate, it's supposed to be. That tells us what that is making. You'll see kind of how this works in the future. This is a container. The stone furnace is a container, so we can do like we talked about earlier. We can shift right click and get half of that. We can shift left click and get the rest of it. We can also do it by not even going into the container and just control left clicking or control right clicking to get all or half. So with that in mind, we have a little bit of coal here, so I want to craft up another one of these burner miner drills. In order to do that, you can left click it and that'll give you one. If you right click it, we don't have enough stuff to make it right now, but if we right clicked it, it would build 5 for us. And notice it just puts them down there in the left hand corner. That's our craft queue. So it'll always tell you what you're building in your pockets. We're going to go ahead and get another one of these going so we can start making more iron. Pretty much the name of Factorio is build the factory to build more factory. So that's what we do. We now have that up and going, so we have a little bit of iron. Now notice the burner mining drills take iron gear wheels, and also stone furnaces. And these stone furnaces take stone. So we need to gather not only fuel, which is the coal, but we also need to gather more iron and more stone. Now, the stone is clear over here, so it's going to be a little bit irritating to walk over there, but that's okay. Again, if you build these things, as long as they're fueled, they will keep working while we're away. So I want to show you what we can do with the coal, which is pretty neat. If you take 2 of these miner drills, now notice how it has a little arrow pointing to the right in this particular case. Now we can take 2 of them and use the R key to rotate it and push them facing each other. Then we can use the Z key to put 1 coal in each of those. And notice now we're burning this 1 coal, but as it processes the coal underneath it, it puts it into the other burner miner. So we build up more coal than we burn out running this drill. So the neat thing about that is now we can walk away from this thing and it's going to keep grabbing coal out of the ground, and then we can just come grab coal out of the machine when we want to. Again, you can use control right click to get half or control left click to get all of it. So the neat thing about that is now we can walk away and go over. I control shift clicked the rest of that iron because I want a few other things for the stone. Now we can walk away from this for a little while and not worry about losing resources. Because what we want to do is come over here and set up one of these burner mining drills on the stone. Because we want to get stone. So I'm going to go ahead and put a few pieces of coal in there to get this started. Now notice it's hard to see, but it's putting it onto the ground, which isn't very useful because that blocks it from being able to place any more. Now we could press the F key and grab things off of the ground, but that's not very efficient. So what we can do over here is we can create containers. Now we could, if we had the ore touching that spaceship, we could mine like stone directly into that spaceship. But since it's not touching it, we have to kind of place our own containers. which is this. Again, this is kind of how Factorio works. This is the puzzle aspect. You kind of put things together to have everything interact with each other. So what I did was I grabbed a bunch of trees because we're going to use those for a few things, but the first thing we're going to use them for are these wooden chests. Now I clicked it once, and then I left clicked it once to get 1, and then right clicked it once to get 5, so that gave us 6. But now we can take one of those wooden boxes, wooden chests, and it now notice it is a storage container. So it will store whatever's coming out of this burner miner drill, just like as if we had put another burner mining drill facing the other direction. But you can't do that with stone because that's just a trick that you can do with coal since they feed each other. We have to manually feed those things ourselves for a little while. We will get more advanced tech that allows us to do much fancier stuff here in a little while. But as is, we have come back up to our other location here, and we are low on fuel. Notice how these 3 items don't have any fuel left. So we're going to go ahead and place some fuel in them. Now, one neat thing you can do is if you hold the Z key down, it'll place more than one thing in. And if you hold the Z, if you press the Z key and then just move it around, whenever your mouse goes to the next item, it'll place things in there. So you can just kind of go through that how you want to and evenly add, a bunch of coal in a large set of things. But again, we will get to the point where we're self-feeding these things, so this doesn't last very long, but it's good to know these things in the initial playthrough here so that you get a pretty good start. So far, I would call this a pretty good start. We have iron, we have coal, we have stone coming. We are soon to have copper. There's our first copper. So now we can go down here and get our stone while the rest of that's working away. And this time we shouldn't be down here too long. So by the time we get back up there, none of that should have run out of fuel. Mostly I wanted those so that we could build a few more stone furnaces. Notice how these burner miner drills need stone furnaces. So it's always a good idea to keep building those stone furnaces as we can, because you will need them. I took a little bit too much coal out of there. Notice it now has no fuel, so it can't burn. That's fine. If you accidentally do that, you can just use the Z key to put one back in. You could avoid that by control right-clicking and only taking half of it out, because then you're less likely to take all of the fuel out. But again, it doesn't really matter that much because you can just put a piece of coal back in it. So what we need to do now, we have each of the resources coming in automatically for us. We don't have to do that ourselves, which is good. So if we look at the map here, with the M key, we can see that this red area around us is pollution. Below the mini-map, there's these little icons when you're in the map that allow you to toggle these overlays on and off. So this is pollution. We don't want that red blob that we're creating to get to these red blobs over here that are on the map. That will eventually happen. But we're going to kind of go slow so that we are less likely to trigger that. The more these burner miners and these stone furnaces are pretty polluting, so they will build that pollution cloud up very quickly. But that said, we need a lot of iron too, and we need a lot of copper and everything. The factory never builds enough for itself. That's why we have to keep building the factory. So we're going to put 2 more iron in, and we'll probably put 1 or 2 more copper in. Again, I'm holding the Z key down and just moving the mouse around those a little bit. We're also going to place 2 more of the coal. Also, if you press the Q button while you're hovering over something, the Q key, then it will copy what you're mousing over, including the rotation. So notice how I got that one. I Q keyed that one and I got the same rotation. You can press the R key again, to just rotate. You can also do Shift R and it'll rotate counterclockwise. But I very rarely remember that, so I usually just rotate 3 times instead of shift rotating once. If you're smarter than me, you'll be able to remember the shift key. We'll go ahead and put a little bit more in there. We didn't have much coal in there, so we didn't get much stone out of that. That's okay. We've got 9. Now what we want to do, obviously running back and forth between this is not the best use of our time. So we want to go ahead and get to the point where we do not have to do that anymore. We want to get rid of these high polluting burner drills. So what we need is power. In order to get power, we need a little bit of that copper that we have, and we need a bunch of iron because we need to build a boiler, which also requires stone, notice there, in the total raw resources. So we're going to get a boiler, we're going to get 2 steam engines, we're going to get an offshore pump. Then we're also going to get, you don't need these, but I like them. I'm going to get an underground pipe and some regular pipes, and I'm going to show you why I like those here in a moment. And we're going to go ahead and refill these up a little bit. We're going to grab our ore back, our plates, I should say, back out and grab some coal. Because we also need to power the coal. We're probably going to run out of power on these, and that's okay. But I want to come down here where there's some water. So in our initial power generation is steam power. And I want to go ahead and generate this off of this lake. So we take that offshore pump, we go ahead and place that in here so that we're grabbing water out of this little lake. And then I like to have these straight pipe there just so that I can see the little water icon so that I know what's in those pipes. It does a pretty good job giving you those indicators, but I still like to put those straight pipes in there. Just a little thing that I like to do. But once we have water coming through that pipe, notice there on the right hand side, there's 100 of 100 water in that pipe, so we know it's working. Now we can place this boiler down right here. If you look at it, there's this through line here with water and water. And then there's steam that comes off perpendicular right here. So what we want to do now, so this boiler essentially takes the water, and then let's put some coal in there. And you'll notice down at the bottom on the right side there, it generates steam. The steam is now 200 of 200, and it was burning water, or boiling, heating water to make that happen. So once we have steam, notice on the steam engine here, it has steam inputs. You can see those icons. So if we place 2 of those in line, now it's going to fill these up with steam. Notice how it burned a moment again. Then we can take these small electric poles. I'm right-clicking those to get 5 at a time. Notice how it's building copper cable, and then it's building those small electric poles because it takes a wood and some copper cable. And again, the system will automatically craft intermediate items for you, including the copper cable, which is kind of nice. But now I like to take those small power poles and stick them down there in that slot so that they're easy to access for me. And what we can do is once we place these power poles down, notice how those icons, the power icons on the steam engine disappeared. It's now being put into the electric network. Everything these power poles touch, notice how there's this little area on the ground here that shows the area of effect of these power poles. Anything we place inside that light blue area is powered, including, well, I should say it takes the power or transfers the power into it. So it takes the power from these steam engines and places it into the electrical network. And then if we place something here, let's go ahead and grab a science lab because that's going to be our next goal here, is to get some science up and going. In order to do some science, we need, on the third tab here, the intermediate products, we need some of the automation science pack recipes, also called red science very frequently. So I'll show you how that works here. Now, if we place this, if we were to place the science building down, the lab just outside here, there's a blinking power icon. That's because it's not touching that area of effect area. So if we pick that back up and place it down here where it's touching that blue, notice how that power icon goes away. We can now go into up here, press T to start a new research in the top right above our minimap. So we can press the T key. This is the very large tech tree, which is really, really cool. There's some neat things that you can get very, very far into the future, which we will experiment with all of these. As of now, we're going to start with the basics, the first one being automation. If you are feeling like you're going to get attacked early, like let's say we're playing a Death World, we're going to be doing different research technology in that one than we are in this one. You would, in that case, you might want to start with turrets and walls and military. In this case, automation is almost always the first item that you want to pick. Oh, notice in this research window here, it takes so one science pack in this research. This can vary per research. In this case, it's 10 seconds to process that. And then we need 10 of those in order to build this or to learn this automation. So what we need to do is put these red science packs in that lab. And now you notice the power kicked on right here for us, which is pretty cool. The steam power is pretty intelligent, and it will automatically pull out whatever power is needed. So our satisfaction is 60 kilowatts right now because that's all we need to power the electrical grid itself and this the lab here. Notice down on the right hand side, it's max consumption 60 kilowatts. So that is now powering that, and we can toss those extra 5 in there. And as long as we have that power going, it's going to be burning coal, but it's also going to be doing work for us. So let's go ahead and add, we'll refill that power right now. Then the other thing that I like to do, we don't have the iron to do that, so we will do that in the next episode actually. This one is getting a little bit long. So in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and go back up here and recap what we've done. We've got stone going a little bit so that we can keep going and keep building the things that we need. We were down there for a long time, so we are out of power here now. None of this is working. That's fine. We can go ahead and reload this with coal pretty quickly, the same way we've done before. It just needs a little bit. Then we're going to go ahead and harvest the iron plates and copper plates back out of there. We'll grab the coal one more time, and that allows us for automation to be finished. And now you'll notice in our first crafting tab here, we have a few more options, including it's in the second tab, the production. So the assembly machine here is what we want. It also gave us the red inserter on the first hand, but that isn't quite as useful yet. We will use that eventually. But what we need in the next episode coming up are these assembly machines. So that's where we're going to leave off here. And in the next episode, we will look at how we can get out of the burner miner phase and take full advantage of the electricity that we just built and have this factory itself start building things for the factory. But thanks for watching. We'll talk to you in the next one.